Just 12 days ago, the Eagles saw a depleted Washington football team in South Philadelphia, and now both teams meet again from the nation's capital. With 2 games left and all the Birds have to do is win, they look to pick up their 5th road win of the season and take a shot at some playoff football. Eagles fans, welcome on into the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. I'm Gabriella DiGiovanni, and this is certainly a big one here for the Birds. Welcoming in Fran Duffy, who joins me. Fran, how are we feeling?
Feeling great, Ella. Obviously, like you said, a huge matchup here for the Eagles today, and obviously a ton on the line for this team down in Washington.
On the line. We're going to check in at FedEx Field as the team starts to get warmed up here. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts to start. There he is. Okay, he is approaching 3,000 passing yards today, which some may say, well, a lot of quarterbacks have reached that milestone so far this season, but you can't forget what he does on the ground. 740 yards on the ground. He ranks second on the team in rushing and second among quarterbacks around the league in rushing yards, first in rushing touchdowns. So huge opportunity for Jalen Hurts today to keep this train rolling. Yeah,
this is a player in Jalen Hurts that is one of the leaders in the entire NFL in explosive plays created, both as a runner and as a passer. And so that speaks to his dual threat skill set. Obviously, Jalen Hurts looking to put that further on display here in this game against Washington. Remember, he's only a couple weeks removed from that ankle injury that he sustained a few weeks back against the Giants. And so as he continues to get further and further away from that injury, we'll see him return to form here, and hoping it starts or continues here today against Washington.
He was asked how that ankle was feeling this week. He said, fine, it's gotten us 2 wins.
That's right.
Which, like a little chip on his shoulder, but he's exactly right. It has gotten them 2 wins. And I thought what was interesting this week, he was also asked about his relationship with offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. Now, some may say, well, of course, he's a coach on the staff. But I think what's so important about that relationship is because the run game has been so successful for the Eagles, especially in the past 8 weeks or so. So for the quarterback to be developing this relationship with the offensive line coach, I think speaks volumes about how this offense operates.
Yeah, and I think it really kind of speaks to Jalen Hurts and his growth in this entire offense, Ella, because with Jalen Hurts and having that ability to get up to the line of scrimmage and make some of those pre-snap checks, we've seen that from him on the field over the last few weeks. And whether it's checking to a screen for Jalen Reagor to ice the game late in the game against Washington, or any of these other snaps where he's changing the play at the line of scrimmage, well, you can't just know the playbook from the pass game standpoint. You have to understand what are the different runs that are going to work well in this play. And I think that that's a really good example of how Jalen Hurts has full grasp of this offense, not just in the pass game, but in the run game and getting all of his teammates involved.
Let's dig a little deeper into this running game. They rushed for over 130 yards in 9 straight. That's the longest streak since 1943 and 44. And they're 160 yards away from the most rushing yards in an Eagles season. Okay, now big news from this rushing attack today. Of course, running back Miles Sanders is out after suffering a broken hand on Sunday. The man right there, Boston Scott, it's a huge opportunity for him today. Between him, Jordan Howard, who is active, he has been battling a stinger this week, very limited in practice. A lot of the responsibility is on Boston Scott's shoulders here today.
Yeah, and with Jordan Howard obviously dealing with that shoulder injury throughout the course of the week, he is active in this game, Ella, but Boston Scott is a guy that whenever given the opportunity, he has found ways to produce. And Kenny Gainwell, who we see here on our screen now, also consistently finding ways to produce. Ella, I'm pretty sure if you or I were back there behind this offensive line in this scheme, we would find ways to pick up a yard or two here or there. But this talented group of Eagles running backs, obviously the loss of Miles Sanders, that is notable, right? But I think that this machine will continue to operate, because when you have the talent that the Eagles do have in the backfield paired with this scheme and the offensive line, you're going to find ways to be able to move the football on the ground.
And look, this rushing attack has always operated as a by-committee approach. So when it is that next man up mentality, of course, and looking at Boston Scott, I'm kind of laughing thinking about what Nick Sirianni said about him earlier in the week. He said Boston Scott is the kind of player that if you woke him up in the middle of the night, you put him in the car and you drove him to Lincoln Financial Field and said, you're playing today, he would be as prepared as anybody on the roster. And that's exactly right. You mentioned Kenny Gainwell. He said whatever it takes when he was asked earlier in the week about his preparation. And Kerryon Johnson, you have to note too, he was signed to the practice squad earlier in the week. So they are prepared for all situations, all scenarios between Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, and Kenny Gainwell. It's going to be interesting to see how all of these players are going to be deployed.
Yeah, and that's what has been a strength of this offense and of this rushing attack over the course of the last couple of months is leveraging into the strengths of all of these players. Everybody is not built the same. Everybody doesn't have the same strengths and weaknesses. So leaning into those strengths, hiding those weaknesses. Don't ask guys to do things that they're not particularly great at. I think that's been one of the things that we haven't necessarily talked about too often here with this rushing attack, but I feel like it's been one of their strengths, is really leaning into what these guys do well all across the board.
And we talk so much about the rushing attack, but that's allowed for the passing game to get going. Looking at DeVonta Smith right here as we bring in these offensive starters. DeVonta Smith had a great game on Sunday against the Giants. A really impressive first half when the offense was struggling to get things started. We can't forget the season. He has 821 yards. He's pushing that 1,000-yard mark, and he needs just 92 receiving yards to set the record for most receiving yards by an Eagles rookie since Deshaun Jackson in 2008. So DeVonta Smith has really grown. We've seen his development throughout the season. The past few kickoff shows, Fran, you and I have talked about him having quiet games, right? But that's also because defenses around the NFL are game planning for him. They have to take DeVonta Smith into account. And when they do, that also allows guys like Dallas Goedert to have a day.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is that when you run the ball as well as the Eagles do, there are only so many pass targets to go around. And so last week, that happened to be a DeVonta Smith day where he was the leader in targets for this passing game. In previous weeks, we've seen it be Dallas Goedert. In previous weeks, we've seen Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor all kind of mixed in, right? So if you're going to run the ball 40-plus times a game, well, you're only going to get 20 or so passes, and that means that those targets have to be kind of split up. And so really it all comes down to capitalizing on your opportunities. Last week, DeVonta had the majority of those opportunities, and he came through in a big way.
We're talking about the wide receiver group. I also want to touch on real quick Jalen Reagor, because Washington is without their punter, Tressway, who was placed on the COVID list. That's a game changer when you're talking about changing the field. Their punter, he was averaging 49.2 yards per punt. And don't forget, last week, Jalen Reagor really got things going on special teams with that 39-yard return against the Giants.
Yeah, and in that game a couple Tuesday nights ago, I thought Tressway had a pretty solid showing. And so that is a loss here for Washington. I'll be interested to see ultimately how that impacts that third phase of the game. I'm so glad that you brought it up, Ella, because what Jalen Reagor did last week as a punt returner, I think that was big. It helped give the Eagles a little bit of a spark. He gave them some field position in some inopportune times for the opposing team, for the New York Giants. And so I think when you look at that phase of the game on special teams, that'd be an area where the Eagles might be able to get an edge here in this matchup.
Taking a look at Dallas Goedert here, when he did play Washington just 12 days ago, he was targeted 9 times, 7 receptions, 135 yards. I mean, the way he's been playing the past few weeks, impressive to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, on the Eagles game plan this week, we actually looked back at that performance for Dallas going up against Washington and how it was an example of how he's one of the most complete tight ends in football. We know what he is as a blocker, but in that game against Washington, he made plays, Ella, at all 3 levels of the field. Remember that 45-yard catch he had down the left sideline where he not only outran a corner, but then jumped up and over a corner. He looked like a receiver, a big-time wide receiver outside the numbers, but he's also creating separation at the intermediate level. He's winning on screens and getting the ball in his hands fast, yards after catch. So this is a tight end in Dallas Goedert who has the ability to beat you at all 3 levels of the field in the passing game. That is very, very hard to find, not to mention with what he does as a blocker.
And I think it's great that Jalen Hurts has confidence in Dallas Goedert. As the weeks have gone on, you can see their relationship grow and how efficient they've been working together. And of course, since week 8, of course, the Eagles lead the NFL in rushing offense, but third down efficiency, Dallas Goedert has also played a huge role in how efficient the Eagles have been on third down.
And third down has been so important for this Eagles team over the last couple of months because when you run the ball at the level that they do, you're not always going to get, be able to generate a lot of first downs. You're going to face 3rd and 2. You're going to get 3rd and 4. And so when you get into those situations, you've got to be efficient to keep those drives alive. And I think, to your point, Dallas Goedert has been a big part of that, not just as that possession guy over the middle of the field, but being able to attack teams vertically. Hey, let's get him going in the screen game. Let's get him a quick RPO fast to help create not just those third down wins, but more of those favorable third downs early in drives.
And of course, we gotta talk about the big boys up front. We do it every week, week in and week out. We're looking at center Jason Kelce, who is quite literally the center of this team. If you checked out Unscripted on PhiladelphiaEagles.com this week, you see the moving speech he gave the night before the Giants game. He is the reason this offense operates the way it does, the way they believe in each other, the way that they do, and it's the reason they've gone 6 of 8 as of late. So the success starts up front, okay, both in the locker room and on the field. This is why the Eagles have been so successful. Jason Kelce right here.
And I'm so glad that you alluded to that segment with Unscripted, because you got to go and find that. Number one, 23 minutes, I believe, of pure exclusive access behind the scenes of this Eagles football team. And so you got to see Jason Kelce giving his speech to the team the night before the Giants game last week, and just how impassioned he was speaking to his teammates. Rodney McLeod the week before when the team prepared to face Washington, right? So you get a chance to be able to see these guys where you don't normally see them. We know the impact that Jason Kelce has. We know the impact that a guy like Lane Johnson has on the field between the lines on Sundays or Tuesdays, like the last time these two teams met, but also off the field, what they mean to the locker room, to the coaching staff, to their teammates. I thought it was a great example of that.
You mentioned Lane Johnson. We're taking a look at him right now. In 384 pass blocking snaps, Fran, he hasn't allowed a sack. Just one quarterback hit. So if you're taking notes at home, he has more touchdowns this season than sacks allowed. Okay, he was also asked about the success of this offensive line in this running game, and he did what Jordan Mailata does. He credited Jordan Mailata. When you ask Jordan Mailata, he credits Lane Johnson. And Lane even said, look, between Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson next to each other, that is dangerous for opposing defenses.
That's a whole lot of beef on the left side of that offensive line with Mailata and with Dickerson. But Lane Johnson, I'm sorry, you point to those numbers, and it's just kind of weird, Ella. I mean, the guy's let up no sacks. He's one of the best blockers on the best rushing team in football, one of the most gifted offensive linemen in the entire league. Not even a Pro Bowl alternate. Maybe that's a discussion for another day. One of the biggest Pro Bowl snubs in the NFL this year. But I think when you look at Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, you see Landon Dickerson on the left side of your screen. We talked about Jason Kelce. This offensive line, one of the best units in football, no question.
And they're going up against a pretty stout defensive line from Washington. Obviously, they're a little thin as of late. Of course, they lost Chase Young earlier on in the season. And Montez Sweat is also not playing today due to some tragic personal issues he's dealt with in the past week. Still a challenge for the Eagles offensive line, but we'll see kind of how they get it done today, how the Washington defensive line counters what the Eagles have prepared today.
Yeah, much like the Eagles defense, the strength of this Washington defense is that front. And when you look at Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne inside, even without Montez Sweat, without Chase Young, he's on injured reserve. They're going to have some young players playing off the edge there in Washington. Those two guys in the interior, and then if you go to the guys behind them, and Matt Ioannidis and Tim Settle, that's a really good group of defensive tackles, and they will present a tough matchup here for the Eagles in this game.
And look, they still rank 8th in rushing defense.
Yep.
But you can't let that ranking play into this matchup, because the Eagles have also played the best rushing defense this season. When they played the Saints earlier in the year, they were ranked 1st, and that didn't stop them. They rushed for over 200 yards. So, of course, any challenge in the National Football League is a tough one when it comes to the trenches.
Yep.
But this Eagles offensive line has been purely dominant.
Yeah, I mean, they ran for 200 against this defense just 2 Tuesdays ago, right? Yep. So they've got that ability to be able to create yardage on the ground against this defense.
We're going to look at some of the defensive players, if we will. The defensive side of the ball, okay? They were named a top 10 defense in the NFL this week. Jonathan Gannon didn't want to go there. He didn't want to talk about numbers, but if you look at purely numbers, this is a top 10 defense.
Yeah, and this is a group that prides themselves on the ability to stop the big play, both in the run and in the pass, and create turnovers. And I think when you look at the way that they've been able to go about that over the last couple of months, it speaks to those two axioms and what they've been able to lean on as staples of that unit. I think it starts up front with a couple of those guys you see right there, a couple of guys we featured this week on Eagles Game Plan. You see Fletcher Cox there off in the background. You also see number 93, Milton Williams, the rookie third-round pick, has really come on strong. Javon Hargrave, that whole group, just the strength of this Eagles defense.
You mentioned Javon Hargrave. He leads the Eagles with 7.5 sacks, 18 quarterback hits, 8 tackles for loss. They're all career highs. And he was asked this week what the 2 big areas he thought the defense has improved. He said getting teams off the field on 3rd down, and of course rushing defense, which Fran, you and I can certainly agree on. That was an area the Eagles defense struggled with early on. And the way they've been able to stop the run recently, is amazing to see.
Yeah, I mean, the leaves were green on the trees the last time the Eagles lit up a 100-yard rusher, right? I think this is one of the strengths of this defense is the ability to stop the run, and they've shown that over the last couple of months. Stop the run despite having lighter boxes because they still like to play with more guys playing in the secondary, right? So they're going to have those lighter box, win your matchups up front. That means the defensive line and linebackers attack the line of scrimmage, defeat your blocks, and get to the football. And how often, Ella, do we hear them talk about population to the football? It's one of the staples of this Eagles defense.
Yeah, JG says all the time, it's 11 versus 1. There's only one football on the field. You have 11 guys playing defense. That's the way he coaches this defense up, and you can see that's the way that they execute.
Yep.
Of course, it's great to see some production from younger guys like Milton Williams right there. We'll hear from him a little later on. But it's not only Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. Of course, they're the stars of the show, but it's been great to see some of these younger guys really, really cause some disruption up front.
And it's huge for this team, not just down the stretch. Look, this is obviously with COVID-19 and all the cases spiking all across the NFL, all across the world, you're going to need all of these players. And so I actually asked Jonathan Gannon about that this week when he came on Eagles Game Plan was, hey, when you got an opportunity like you did last week against the Giants, the Eagles played all of their backups in the fourth quarter, being able to get reps for some of those guys that we don't necessarily get to see all that often. Cameron Malveaux getting out there, Andre Chachere getting out there. You go down the list, Zach McPherson getting quality reps over the last few weeks, right? So continuing to see these guys get more and more reps, that's going to be important for this defense down the stretch.
Looking at linebacker TJ Edwards as we bring in the defensive starters here today. Edwards, of course, had career-high 16 tackles last week. Very humble when he was asked about it this week with media, just saying, every play, I want to be around the football. And he surely does that, of course, with the help of Alex Singleton, who leads the team in tackles with 129. So the linebacking core has really grown throughout the season. We talk about their growth a lot, especially on the post-game show following these games. But you can't forget now, Antonio Gibson, the running back for Washington, he's out today due to COVID. All right, now the Eagles did an excellent job just 12 days ago in really, really containing Gibson. But once you remove him from the equation, then you got to bring in the rookie, Jarrett Patterson, who has just 50 carries this year for 188 yards. So TJ Edwards, the way he's producing and playing, it's going to be a tough day for the rookie to step in Gibson's absence.
Yeah, a couple Tuesdays ago, Ella, we talked here on the show about how this Eagles defense, don't let this become the Garrett Gilbert game. Well, now fast forward to this afternoon, don't let this become the Jarrett Patterson game. And if you're not familiar with Jarrett Patterson, you don't watch college football, you didn't follow the NFL draft last year, Jarrett Patterson ran for like a bajillion yards at the University of Buffalo over the course of his career. And so this is a guy that knows how to run the rock. He can be counted on between the tackles. He'll get a little bit on the perimeter as well. The Eagles have to make sure they bottle him up, do what they've continued to do over the last couple of months. And that's stop the run, get the opposing offense into third and long, and then unleash the dogs. Let those guys get after the quarterback, whether they're going to blitz or go with just a four-man rush. The Eagles have to bottle up Jarrett Patterson in this game, make Taylor Heineke try and beat you from third and long down after series after series.
Well, what's going to make it a little tough to get the run game going, too, is when you're missing offensive linemen. Of course, missing Sam Cosmi and Eric Flowers, who are on the COVID list. Brandon Scherff is making his return. He did not play against the Eagles 12 days ago. But it's hard to get things going when you have offensive linemen down. Yeah,
and they're already dealing with their fourth center, right? They have backup center in the game, backup left guard, backup right tackle. And so Washington's certainly dealing with less than a full deck along the offensive line. But every team has had to deal with that, right? And that's something we just talked about with everything going on with the pandemic. You've got to be able to utilize that depth. And so the Eagles, they get Derek Barnett back for this game. He was activated from the COVID-19 list on Saturday evening. So they get Derek Barnett back. Obviously, you have Fletcher Cox, you have Josh Sweat, you've got Javon Hargrave, you go into Milton Williams and Ryan Kerrigan, Cameron Malveaux, that whole group. Teron Jackson, the rookie defensive end, he has really popped. So I think continuing to look at all of these guys up front, that will create a big matchup here in the trenches. Well, what's going to happen is when you're missing offensive linemen and the Eagles' defense line is so good, it's going to bring pressure to the quarterback. Yeah. What's that going to do? It's going to make him throw to these guys in the secondary, and that's going to be an uncomfortable place to throw because of the pressure that they put on in that second half of the defense. Yeah, this is a group that loves to fly around and just be at the football. I mean, it goes back to one of the things we talked about earlier, the population of the football. You mentioned what TJ Edwards says is, hey, I just want to be around the ball at all times. And that leans into their ability to create turnovers. Let's lay all cards out on the table. creating turnovers, a lot of the time, is luck, right? You need balls to bounce your way. You need some errant throws. You need everything to kind of go right as a defense for you to be able to create some of these turnovers. But the ways to increase your luck, make your own luck, get around the football. And that's what we saw Rodney McLeod last week, breaking on that throw underneath. That pops the ball up in the air. That's a great play. Pass break up. Nice job, Rodney McLeod. But that turns into a pick six because Alex Singleton is right there. He stuck his foot in the ground and broke back towards the throw and was right there to be able to pick it up and take it back to the house. And so when you look at this Eagles defense, they're always going to talk about being at the football, population to the ball, 11-on-1, like you mentioned earlier, Ella. They always want to be around the ball because good things happen when you get there.
And look, you can't talk about this Washington offense without talking about wide receiver Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
And, when we see shots of big play Slay, it's a big opportunity for him today again, okay? Last 12 days ago, less than 2 weeks ago, when the Eagles played Washington, they held McLaurin to just 2 receptions. I mean, that's unheard of when you have a receiver who's been so successful in the National Football League. He's 101 yards away from getting back-to-back 1,000-yard season. So if the Eagles can find a way to contain him again, remove him from the equation, it's going to be a big day for this defense.
Yeah, because you already have no Antonio Gibson. Logan Thomas is on injured reserve. No J.D. McKissick, who was their second leading rusher and receiver at the time of his injury. I think when you look at it, Washington is depleted from a weapons standpoint, and you want to lean into your weapons in big games, in division games. And so when you have Darius Slay to be able to shut down Terry McLaurin, that is going to be huge for this Eagles defense today. As you mentioned, just 2 catches a couple of weeks ago. You need a similar kind of output. Against a guy, Terry McLaurin, his short career so far, he has been a huge thorn in the side of this Eagles defense.
Last week against Dallas, he just had 40 yards. His first catch didn't come until the 4th quarter. So I'll be interested to see the Eagles' game plan in taking him out of the equation. But like we've been talking about this whole time, it's going to start up front. How they can pressure Taylor Heinicke, make him throw, make him make uncomfortable decisions, if you will.
Taylor Heinicke, let's put it all cards out on the table once again. After their bye week, he was efficient. He was the most efficient quarterback in the NFL for about a month. Then they hit that Dallas game the week before they played the Eagles a couple weeks ago, and he was bad. He had a couple of bad mistakes, some bad turnovers, didn't look poised in the pocket. Dallas really was able to take advantage. Then he goes on the COVID-19 list. He comes back, plays Dallas last week. Once again, was not strong. The winning formula for Washington in this game is not Taylor Heinicke throwing the ball 40, 45, 50 times. That's not the way that they want to be able to play. So it will be up to the Eagles defense once again. Stop the run. Force Taylor Heinicke to beat you in those legit passing downs.
And look, we don't want to start looking too far ahead. And this week, Eagles players, Eagles coaches, we're not looking ahead. They want to stay here in the present. But if we were to take a peek, the Eagles have to take care of business here today. They have to win. Okay, we'll worry about all the rest and what everybody else in the NFC has to do. But for now, the Eagles must win here today against Washington. But with that, we're going to bring in Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, who's live from Washington at FedEx Field. Dave, welcome in. We've seen the defense show great improvement throughout the season. Fran and I have been discussing it at length here on the show. What has been the spark for them to really, really get things going?
You know, Ella, it's a great question, and it's one that Eagles fans have been kicking around and media have been kicking around, and certainly the level of quarterback has made a difference down the stretch. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I think really what Jonathan Gannon has done is understand what works, how his players can thrive, and how it can all work together. So I also will say this, the emergence of TJ Edwards, and you hear the boos, by the way, that's all Eagles fans booing Washington going off the field. I mean, it is like 95% as I look up here, Eagles fans. It's amazing. But the defense, the emergence of TJ Edwards has really helped a whole lot. I think that getting Rodney McLeod back in the lineup after missing the opening 3 games and having a rotation at the safety position has helped. Slay has been terrific. Steven Nelson's been a really good second cornerback. And Avonte Maddox has been outstanding as the nickel corner. So learning what you have in addition to a lot of other things, I think that's really been the key for Jonathan Gannon.
Well, Dave, obviously a lot at stake, a lot of factors at play in a division game like this one. What is the biggest storyline that you'll be focused on here?
I said this earlier in the season, Fran, when the Eagles were preparing to play the Carolina Panthers. It was just that moment that you wanted Jalen Hurts to step up and be the guy. And to me, this is a defining moment for Jalen because, look, there's so much on the line here, a chance to clinch a playoff spot, a Washington defense that is now fortified with some players back from the COVID-19 list, a good front, a team that he started poorly against 13 days ago, 12 days ago. You know, the interception, the fumble, 2 games back-to-back here where Jalen has not started well. So he and I talked this week, and he said we have yet to play our very best game. So I'm looking for Jalen Hurts, without Miles Sanders in the backfield, I'm looking for Jalen Hurts to have that kind of defining late season, get your team into the playoffs kind of moment.
Dave, honing in specifically on the defense, what do they need to do as a unit to secure a win today?
Well, Fran just talked about it. It really is the Washington formula to establish the run, and then try to go over the top with a big play to Terry McLaurin. So I know that the Eagles, without Antonio Gibson, they don't have to worry about the dual threat of Gibson. But, you know, Washington will still try to run the football behind that tattered offensive line. And if the Eagles can make them one-dimensional, they're going to then tee off on Taylor Heineke, who has taken shot after shot after shot. And we saw him on Sunday night against Dallas, gasping for air, holding his sternum. He's all beat up, and the Eagles would like to further that physical complication today. Stop the run, and then get after Heineke.
All right, Dave, thanks so much. Let's bring a win back home, huh?
All right, guys, go Birds. Great crowd down here, and the Eagles fans, again, impressing, traveling down to FedEx Field in a huge number.
Thanks so much, Dave. All right, friend, we heard from Dave and his keys and his storylines to watch. What's it going to take for you?
I just love the Eagles fans traveling down to FedEx Field. For me, my big key to the game, you can't let these 2 defensive tackles wreck this game, Ella. And we talked about how that Washington defensive line, that is the strength of this defense. And we saw them all on national TV last Sunday night taking swings at each other on the benches. This was a frustrated group a week ago. Look, that's all water under the bridge. They're going to come back rearing to go, trying to get revenge after a poor performance a couple of weeks ago against this Eagles team, right? So when you look at Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, these 2 guys can impact the game in a big way. Allen is going to the Pro Bowl. You could argue that Payne should have gone to the Pro Bowl. Both these guys, one of the best defensive tackle tandems in the league. Eagles cannot let those 2 wreck the game because they have done that here this season.
Fran, for me, it's going to be this offense starting quick, okay? It was a slow start against the Giants on Sunday, a slow start against Washington the week prior, they were behind 10-0. Dallas Goedert was asked about these slow starts, and he said it's a point of emphasis this week. They got to get things going. Goedert even said, you know, thankfully, the defense has been able to bail us out the past few weeks. You don't want to have to rely on the defense to bail you out when the offense can just get things going early on and really take ownership and control the game. So I'm going to be looking for a strong, efficient, productive start for this Eagles offense. But with that, we're going to head over to the Mike Quick 101. He sat down with rookie defensive tackle Milton Williams this week, presented by Pond Hockey.
Milt, thanks for joining us. Your rookie season, everyone talks about the rookie wall. Did you hit that yet?
I hit that a while ago, but it don't mean anything. You still just got to push through and fight and try to get better. It don't matter if I hit the wall or not. You just got to go.
I know early in the season you were close to the hip of Brandon Graham. How much has it helped you that you had BG, you have Fletcher Cox, and the other veterans around to kind of show you the way to go?
Man, it's everything. Without those guys in the room, I probably wouldn't be producing the way that I have been producing lately, because I think experience is the best teacher, and the guys you got in the room, they've been doing this for a long time, so it's nothing about the game they don't know. So constantly picking their brain and having them stay on me in practices and what they see out there that I should focus on is big for me.
Back in, I think it was week 8, Detroit, you kind of jumped off the screen in the way you played in that game, and we're seeing more of that lately. What is it about your game right now that you look so comfortable on the field?
You just said it. I feel more comfortable now. Like I said, I think experience is the best teacher, and just getting a lot of snaps under my belt and kind of just playing the game within the game, but seeing offensive linemen and how they look in their stance, if they lean in a certain way or what I feel, and then making sure production, but don't chase plays, let them come to you.
You're going down to face the Washington football team again, a team that you know pretty well. Tell me about the major challenges you face against that football team and their offensive line.
I think they got a good group up front. Big, strong guys, and they're physical. So the big thing with them is just don't let them try to use their physicalness against you. Try to attack them and make them match your physicality.
You have an opportunity in your first season to get into the playoffs, and I'm sure guys like Fletcher Cox are going to tell you the importance of going down there and getting a win. What are guys like that saying to you at this stage?
Man, just go out there and do your job and play hard as you can as long as you're on the field. If you make a mistake, move to the next play. If you make a big play, move to the next play. It's all the same, just being consistent.
Your rookie season, you've played close to 40% of the defensive snaps. Did you anticipate that? How did you envision this season unfolding for you?
That was always one of my goals coming in as a rookie, was to be a part of the rotation. And whenever I'm in there, like I said, just try to produce as much as I can. I'm glad I played as many snaps as I have and produced the way I have, but it's always room for improvement.
The Philadelphia Eagles and Axalta Coating Systems have built a roster of all-pro teachers. Go to philadelphiaeagles.com/Axalta All-Pro Teachers to view this year's outstanding recipients. Eagles fans, score official NFL gear every week just by drinking Pepsi. Purchase Eagles Pepsi bottles or packs, scan the code to start building points, and redeem them for Eagles gear or a shot at the grand prize every single week. Visit madeforeagleswatching.com for rules and to enter. All right, Fran, while we're inching a little closer to kickoff, what's your Rico extra point?
Well, Ella, we've talked a lot about this Eagles rushing attack, right? And the way that they're able to attack opposing defenses. What if the Eagles defense, or what is the Eagles offense seen repeatedly from opposing defenses? Loaded boxes. And that's something you're going to see today against Washington. They're going to roll that extra defender down. That's an 8-man box. That means you've got more defenders than there are blockers. So what are the things that the Eagles offense can do to negate this? I think the big thing is that you're going to try and bring a receiver in and block that safety, and that's going to match up the running back on the corner. That's a favorable matchup for the running back. Then you also have that ability to use the quarterback run game, and so we've seen that from the Eagles, right? Jalen Hurts, you get that running back as a blocker. Well, now those numbers are equal for the offense. Another thing you could do, leave that backside defender completely unblocked. Say, hey, that defensive end, he's not going to chase the running back down from the backside. He's not going to get Boston Scott or Kenny Gainwell. And then obviously you've got the option run game, and that's a good way to get the numbers back in your favor as well. Make that defender wrong regardless of what he tries to do. And so all of these tools at the Eagles' disposal, we've seen them do it all throughout the season, and that's something we'll continue to see here in this matchup against Washington.
All right, Fran, well, that'll do it for us. The Eagles must win here today against the Washington football team. Thanks so much for tuning into the Kickoff Show. Be sure to join us on the post-game show presented by Rico. We'll also have Ike Reese in studio with us to break everything down. We'll have instant analysis, and we'll hear from coaches and players. But until then, go Birds.